Good evening. My name is John Keith, and I, along with Katie Johnson, Emily Jones, and Aaron Keith, make up Group 4. And we decided to discuss the characteristics and issues facing the LGBTQ community. Just to get started, I'm going to give you a brief definition. LGBTQ is a widely known acronym used to identify the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, and queer community. A lesbian is a woman who is sexually attracted to other women. Gay is a term used to describe a man who is attracted to men, but is often used and embraced by women who are attracted to other women as well. Bisexual is a person who experiences sexual, romantic, physical, and/or spiritual attraction to people of their own gender as well as another gender. Transgender is a person whose self-identity does not conform unambiguously to conventional notions of male or female gender. Questioning is the process of exploring one's own sexual orientation, investigating influences that may come from their family, religious upbringing, and internal motivations. And queer are all individuals who fall out of the gender and sexuality norms. To give you a brief history, prior to the 1960s, there was no widely used non-derogatory term for individuals that didn't identify as heterosexual. In addition to that, throughout history, each group represented in LGBTQ had to struggle to find its own identity and was not always welcomed by the larger collective. So what you'll see here in the evolution of terms is an illustration of that. Pre the 1950s, you see that the word most often used was homosexual. In the 1950s to the 1960s, however, you begin to see the introduction of the term homophile. In the 1970s, gay and lesbian were very prevalent. And then the late 1980s, you began to see people identify as bisexual and transgender. In the 1990s and forward, we begin to see the idea of the LGBT and Q. However, members had to fight for recognition within this community because, as you see, it was something that had to kind of work its way up to popular culture or being in the mainstream, if you will. The Stonewall riots are extremely important to the LGBTQ community because of what they represent. In the 1950s and 60s, very few establishments welcomed openly gay people. The Stonewall Inn, which was owned by the mafia, did allow gay patrons, and in part due to this, the place was routinely raided by police, as were other gay bars in Greenwich Village there in New York City. Protests erupted after one such incident and resulted in the formation of activist groups that aimed to establish places where gays and lesbians could be open about their sexual orientation. And all of this traces itself back to the Stonewall riots and the protests that broke out as a result of what happened there at the Stonewall Inn. Again, this is extremely important because the first Gay Pride March took place on June 28, 1970, on the anniversary of the Stonewall riots. The cities that participated were New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. And today, Pride Marches are held on 6 of the 7 continents and in every developed country on the planet. So that just goes to show how far this community has gone. So we wanted to speak a little bit about the LGBTQ community in higher education. And according to early studies that we've seen, homosexuality began with the premise that it had a cause and needed a cure. This idea was very prevalent until recently and is reflected in our school systems as well as our politics. However, institutions have taken or adopted a non-discrimination policy that allow for the formation of various LGBTQ clubs and organizations, as well as they've made more of a commitment to inclusive programming on their campuses. In addition, administrators and staff members have the option of going through safe space or safe zone training. This training is extremely important because it aims to show how to be an LGBTQ ally. It gives concrete strategies for supporting the LGBTQ community. It educates about anti-LGBTQ bias, and it teaches that we need to have respect for all people, regardless of ethnicity, creed, religion, sexual orientation, you name it. So we want to talk about some of the issues that we see facing this community, and one of those being the marginalization of LGBT students. Issues regarding these students can be controversial and are often ignored in educational settings. For instance, many educators have been advised in the past by fellow colleagues and administrators to look the other way when it comes to gay, lesbian, transgender, and bisexual issues. In fact, a survey conducted by GLSEN indicated that 38.6% of students indicated their teachers never intervene when they hear students use homophobic language, and 44% of students said that their teachers only intervene some of the time. Clearly, that's not acceptable, but our educators can make a difference. Educators are often confused about how to handle lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender issues in the classroom. This is due to a lack of training and knowledge by faculty to handle the issue of sexual diversity in school. However, more and more universities across the country are adopting policies and procedures that promote sexual diversity in the classroom, and so hopefully with these policies and procedures will come educators no longer being confused about how to handle these LGBT issues, and these students will begin to feel more safe in their classrooms. So we spoke a little bit about that training in diversity. The reason that we think that it's very vital is because educators can benefit greatly from teacher preparation programs that are used to promote sexual diversity through inclusive school practices. Activities and resources that educators can use to promote sexual diversity are included in the pre-service curriculum for teachers, and this new curriculum and procedures can help teachers implement classroom strategies that can promote an equal opportunity learning environment for all students so that they feel safe and comfortable on campus. Ultimately, our students feeling safe and comfortable on campus promotes a more inclusive atmosphere. So this is why this is extremely important. This slide just gives you a little bit of background on the sexual diversity and pre-service programs for educators. And we advocate that teachers look at current practices, policies, and pre-service programs to learn how to create sexual diversity in the classroom. It's extremely important for educators to ensure the appropriate measures are taken to meet the needs of LGBT students on campus so that students are provided with that safe learning environment. And in addition to increasing the diversity in the pre-service programs, we also advocate that educators examine existing barriers that LGBT students face and discuss how to break these barriers so a more inclusive approach to learning can be obtained. So this is something that partners with the students and makes sure that the atmosphere is conducive for learning, both from an educational standpoint as well as an inclusivity standpoint. Inclusion is extremely important because it ensures that students are treated equally and social justice is achieved for this population of students. And measures should be taken in higher education institutions with procedures and policies that are supportive of LGBT students and ensure they are met based on equality and diversity. So here are some strategies for inclusion or for more inclusion, greater inclusion on campuses. Faculty must address all incidents of homophobia and not hesitate to interject and reprimand students when needed. Educators need to be instructed how to successfully implement policies and procedures from pre-service training that can help establish a friendly and safe LGBT community for students. And higher education institutions can no longer ignore the need to address sexual diversity in the classroom. One school that did a good job of this was Elmhurst College in Illinois. It was the first of its kind to implement a policy that reached out to LGBT students. The college actually received a lot of media attention for updating their admissions application to include the question, would you consider yourself a member of the LGBT community? And I think that this definitely is a step in the right direction for our higher education institutions. Outside of the LGBTQ issues in education, there are also some in the workplace. So these are just some that we've highlighted. Most written works on the topic are not scholarly by accounts of individuals, and that we need more scholarly works. There's a need for more scholarly discussions. Of course, there is the conflict of religion, and so that is something that people definitely feel as if that's a gray area when it comes to this community. There are definite workplace issues, and LGBT individuals are not included in HR diversity training. And in the workplace, the topic of LGBT is oppressed. And then, of course, we've all heard stories about instances in the military and things of that nature where LGBT are unwelcome in those types of professions, like the military. And then you have, organized religion and different teachings that go against inclusion of people who identify as part of this group. Some of the issues that we've seen, or some of the trends that we've seen, are non-suicidal self-injury. Some of these include injury to arms, hands, wrists, thighs, and stomach. And we've seen that it's something that both males and females participate in. Males, however, are more likely to punch objects, and females are more likely to scratch or to get cut. Females are more likely to, report these things in private, and males will injure themselves in front of others. So that's something to look out for. And then something else is isolation, depression, discrimination in housing, poor economic security, and denial of access to healthcare services. These are unfortunately trends that we've seen, and they're things that that we take issue with, and something that needed to be addressed. So some of the issues that we've definitely seen are anti-gay communities, and those who have higher mortality rates and higher psychiatric disorders. However, in communities of acceptance, we see less alcohol abuse symptoms, and we see things such as fewer sexual partners and things of that nature. And so there are positive effects related to community attitudes, or positive effects for these communities in relation to their acceptance by a greater community. Things that we can positively develop, or characteristics that we can positively develop, would be the healthy development of LGBT youth by having the support and acceptance of their family members, institutional changes for positive development, and doing changes in the law surrounding stuff like the union of same-sex partnerships. This is something that they're always going to, or people that identify as LGBTQ are always going to feel marginalized if they feel as if they don't have the same rights as everyone else. And so we need to take a look at the legislature and make sure that the laws that we have that govern this country are all inclusive. For characteristics of a positive school environment, what happens as a result of a positive school environment are that students feel valued, they feel respected, they feel accepted, they don't fear violence. The schools have inclusive policies. There's inclusion and diversity discussions, so it's not just a cookie cutter conversation, but something that includes all students. And also, you understand that students in supportive environments report. These students will tell you if there's issues that are going on versus feeling as if they have to deal with these things by themselves. So it leads to things like fewer suicidal thoughts. It leads to things like less harm being caused to each other, by one's hand or someone else's. And so this ends our report. And I hope that you learned something. And here are some of the references that we've had on the LGBTQ community. Thank you.